So this is kind of a will hit level. Like you say, will it hit this level and pull back? Yes, it will hit this level and pull back. So when it closes this valley, this one is automatic succession as well, because this is actually not an inverse. This is actually a daily valley here instead of a weekly inverse, and it will have a pullback against the 760 level. So now you start to compare this to a recovery market and what it looks like. So if it has to recover against this 1080 level, what's it going to do first? Well, it's going to come back up and test this. And therefore you have one of these large moves that you're seeing in the market upon the break of this right here, right? Upon the break of this, where we know everything is recovering and sequencing right now. We already know, because we've seen TNT do it, we've seen Dent do it, we've seen some of these coins start to back test their levels and set up these larger pieces of the move. So we know that QKC, upon the rate sequencing of Bitcoin, as long as there's not catastrophic failure in Bitcoin, we know if the sequencing is in our favor, this coin can move up in the next day or 2 or 3 days. So by July 3rd, if we have a good sequencing in Bitcoin, if Bitcoin is nice to us and we have a really, really good things happen in Bitcoin, and it doesn't fail down for some catastrophic reason, and Bitcoin allows for it, QKC will break out in a large way. However, QKC might get really pooched on sequencing, because actually that's what happened on QKC earlier here. We had this level here. QKC got broken on sequencing. Bitcoin broke its move. Like, it had this first breakout, which was fine. It had this next breakout right here, which was fine. And then it had this breakout here, which actually Bitcoin had broken the sequencing of this pretty hard. You can actually go and see where Bitcoin had a relatively large move down, and you can coordinate it with QKC's breaking down. Because I've been in this move, so I've been kind of watching where Bitcoin was trying to break up, and then Bitcoin breaks up over pretty significant move, and then everything falls down. Bitcoin hits its ceiling, pushes up a new all-time high, and that's the way it works, right? Bitcoin pushes a new all-time high. Every coin needs to go re-leverage into Bitcoin because it's breaking up a new all-time high, and that breaks all the other moves. So where QKC was trying to confirm on the daily, as it's laddering up off of this level here, right? Because you have this ladder right here that was holding the move up, right? Pandora's boxed this level right here. You've held this to start to try to test this larger trend out here. All of a sudden, right, Bitcoin has its push to its new all-time high. So all the money goes back into Bitcoin. So what happens? All the money's come out of altcoins. So there it breaks its move and sequences it for a future part of its move, right? And then out here, as it's going, trying to hold its perspective level from back here, right? So that hold level fails, and then you're probably on something like this hold level right here. This hold level is trying to hold, right? Through here, this hold level is trying to hold. Bitcoin breaks down and then sequences its move to failure again. And now, if Bitcoin just holds pat and kind of creates this trend like this, right? We come out in QKC and we have come to test trend at the same time as, what is this, 5 o'clock? So something like this. If we, oh, that's too far, Jesus. Okay, let's try. Oh, that's actually not far enough. Is that correct? Oh boy, I can't. It's like I have to do it the reverse way. It's making my brain hurt. So something like this. If Bitcoin is relatively stagnant against this level and all of a sudden breaks over top of this the moment QKC breaks, this is where it sequences into a large move, right? Because you can see where the break is correlating with QKC. However, QKC, if this thing boosts down, QKC boosts down as well, and then it just pulls out the move. And then it has to sequence into a succession on Bitcoin through this level. Or Bitcoin has to just kind of flatline and not do anything too spicy to not break every move, because that's the thing. Bitcoin breaks moves, right? Like we've all seen it do it. But the thing people don't realize is it resequences every coin in the market, because it literally affects every single coin. And when you have a list of 500 coins or 200 coins, if you're on Binance or MEX or whatever site you use, when you have a list of 200 coins, most of them will break down, and then you'll see a couple that are like, oh, all of a sudden, MFT is plus 35% out of nowhere. Because when Bitcoin hit this here, this bottom here, recovered over top of whatever trend here, this just coincidentally was MFT's break, where MFT was testing a big breakout. Now, all of a sudden, everything in the market is red, but MFT is up 35% for some random reason that nobody knows why. Well, because it was sequenced into that move, right? It was sequenced into a breakout moment against Bitcoin. So what can we see about our markets right now? We can look at the overall health, and we can go back to some basic fundamentals here and some founding pieces that, okay, we know TNT has moved up. It has broken its level. So we can see that some of these coins are starting to recover, right? These larger moves don't just happen for random reasons. These larger moves are happening because Bitcoin is recovering, and they just have the benefit of sequencing. Not everything will move up at once, right? There are going to be one day where this coin moves up and the next day where that coin moves up. So now we know we can start to ascertain where this thing could possibly go. Instead of saying, well, what's our targets in this and looking to immediate, right? We know that there's a large ceiling on QKC, right? We know that the ceiling is big. We don't just simply say, oh, 347 is the move. We've got a 20% move, albeit 20% is nice, and take that 20% if that's what you feel like all you want out of this trade and you're happy with that. There's quite possibly a larger move happening here, just like in Bitcoin Diamond when it moved up 100% or 160 or whatever it was, and Raiden has now moved up 80% in the last few days, and TNT moves up 250%. The right sequencing will allow for the correct moves to mature to the level that they need to. But we can already ascertain that everything will start to backtest these levels. This is part of understanding where the market health is in the moment. We look at leverage, right? Obviously, Quark Chain, going back to our last lesson on leverage and fragility, Quark Chain is in a very safe place to buy. It is trying to break out. It has a large ceiling. So now you have to use your TA to decide what level you want to buy. Same with MDA, same with BNT, same with ONG and ARN and all these coins that are in the market right now. Same with every single coin, right? Same with REN, same with everything. Even REN is trying to have a breakout, and there it is right there, right? Like REN's breakout is relatively straightforward. Right? It probably just broke some trend and then started a move up, right? Which is exactly what it did. It just broke its trend and started a move up, right? That's exactly what it's doing. And then over the course of a few days, it's made 46%. Actually, quite a bit more than that. This magnet tool is really throwing me off here. Over the course of a few days, it has made 54%. So if you just simply sat in REN and looks like you had some pretty crazy scalps in here too. 50% up, right? Because it sequenced at the right time. It's that same thing where coins are going to recover against their levels, right? Now, REN is doing it right now. Raiden is doing it. REN is doing it, right? This is probably going to recover against this level, this inverse right here, which could be drilled down and possibly be a different inverse. Possibly be this one right here. Oh, now we need the magnet tool. So we actually inversed into this level to attack the valley, which, as you can see, is an origin inverse level. So this is exactly where it was meant to go. This is the exact level it was meant to hit, and it hit it on the nose. Like it waste any time, just went straight forward, broke over this, which was its origin level here, which you can see here, based upon the failure of the local trend like this, right? You have the local trend right here. Fails, creates that origin level, which was actually already created fractally here and here, but again, creates it there, touches it again, holds probably this stronger value from back here, or maybe even something more immediate. Typically, it's going to hold something inside of the leg. So at a minimum, I would want to see it hold this, but then if we look kind of inside of the leg, what did it actually hold? It held the top of the larger value that got it there. So it simply hits that origin level, holds this, and then goes to its next level, which just coincidentally was trend as well. So duality of compression here against this move. So REN, very straightforward. Like the technicals are showing you exactly what REN is doing. Also, the market health could have told you the same thing, that it was attacking an inverse level, possibly on the weekly, right? Just like what every other coin has been doing, possibly attacking this weekly inverse level right here, which we can actually just get back to the more local part of this level, which is the origin. But in a minimum case scenario, we know that it can test this. So this is very much the same thing, and this is 40%. Who cares if you made the 50% that was here? You made 40% if you just sold that inverse level. You don't need to make 50% on every trade price. You don't even need to make 10% on every trade to be rich. You just need to make a few percent every trade every single day, right? You've just 1% a day will make you rich. So then we go back to something like QKC, and we start to dissect and how this can move. And you can see where the ceiling is so big on something like QKC, even to its first level. Look at the gap in the move. It's insane, right? And we've looked at QKC to death, so I'd look at something else. Another one that I've been watching is PPT. PPT is another thing that it is just, the gap on it is crazy. Insane how big the gap on PPT is. Like once you start getting over, well, actually, this is an even micro time frame origin level. You need to find the origin level here, right? Like you need to find where that origin level exists. So it's this inverse level right here is the origin breakout. So this is the same thing that has been tested. So we know PPT, that's going to be our first sell. So PPT is going to have a 30% gain here relatively soon. And it actually looks like PPT has been trying to break out against this trend and probably sequencing blocked PPT as well here. So PPT, maybe I wouldn't move this trend yet, but maybe I wouldn't move one of them. I'd have kind of two base points pinned to this right here, like 2 base points pinned to this part of the move right here. But really it hasn't closed this yet. So technically it could still move, but I would still like to see it break over the larger trend first. And then there's like a pretty good move on PPT here, but it's like sequencing, right? This might not happen just because we're breaking over this trend in the next 4 hours. Maybe Bitcoin fails and it sequences down, and then this doesn't happen for another 3 weeks. Or maybe it happens in the next hour, right? Like that's a part of sequencing. And that's why capital injection goes into very specific coins at very specific moments. And then even looking at PPT, when it hits this level and pulls back, just like Ren is, it will basically be the same move as Ren, as where it comes up, it hits its valley right here. It's already tested, so it'll hit its next valley here, and then it'll come and it'll hold the top of this, and then it'll push right up to this in the next day. And then, maybe then if this is the same chart as Ren, maybe Ren pulls back to this level again and starts this kind of long-term thing like this, and then just blows up to the bigger level up here, which is, another part of the trade right here, right? Which pulls up to this right here, which is another 60%, or possibly even higher, right? Like that's just one level it could pull up to. But really, when you look at the gap in something like PPT, it's pretty astronomical how big the gapping is in this coin. Like this is just a stab guess at a level. It could actually come to this inverse right here, which is, one of these bigger moves from here to here, 130%, which is more realistic in our markets right now. You see something like TNT and all these coins moving up over 100%. This is more of a realistic level, or even some intermediate level, but even, anything over a few percent is good. So even if it's the inverse here. So this is how we start to see what Bitcoin is doing and look at our markets. And we can see something like TNT is highly leveraged right now. It's got a lot of volatility on it. It's got very fragile levels, right? So again, that's how you, another good one was Skycoin broke Skycoin had broken a pretty significant trend from back here. So Skycoin, this black line, it had broken a local part of the move, which just due to sequencing, Bitcoin had succession in that moment, and Skycoin had gone up that day 100% and has been on a tear since. Like it is just constantly moving up since, right? Like Skycoin has been doing nothing but moving up every single day. It has given multiple entries to make a killing on it. So it's the same thing, right? Skycoin just sequenced at the right time to break out over this level, which launched it into the larger break. So this is very much a right place, right time. Don't get discouraged if you're in a trade and it breaks down. One that I had been in before was BNT, looking for it to break out, and BNT had failed down. BNT, obviously testing this very large trend here. This had been coming close, and there's actually another trend on BNT. I think I actually updated it. It is right here. It was right here. It was about trying to break out right here. So where is that trend? Something like this. It was trying to break out of this right here to this one. Yeah, I was trying to break out against this trend right here. So none of this stuff existed at that point in time. This didn't exist. And this was something that had been tested back in this region too. I believe it was something like that. It's been a while since I've done BNT, but it's been a few, quite a while since I looked at even opened my BNT chart. So I think it was this. I think it was this trend here to that, like that, which gave this kind of this breakout moment that was trying to happen in BNT. And it had been falling sharply against this pretty insane trend that was, right here, like swing to swing, back from the past, back from this point to this point, all the way to this point. And I'd have to break it down fractally to find the exact trend. But anyways, this is what it was. And it had been in this moment of extreme breakout. Many times BNT had been trying this extreme breakout, but then just due to sequencing, it had fallen through its move as to where it was supposed to break out to have a large move, and BNT just hasn't had it yet. That has broken BNT's move actually being testing this trend here. So here to here, all the way to here. Now B&T needs quite some time. It needs actually like a whole nother month actually before it is sequenced into a move. And then so fine, you can start drawing these trends here. And that has just broken there, which is now this here, which could possibly be trying to break out of this trend right there, which it did, which is now going to be this. So like B&T is a move that's just like kind of in no man's land. And you look at like a daily chart on it, and you can kind of tell it's just in no man's land. It's just trying to break out some of these larger trends. And now it's going to have to just kind of take some time to float through this. And then when it floats through this trend here, it'll come up to here and it'll back test this and, maybe make this level right here an origin level. And then it will pull back up against that and then pull down. And then, this one could fray out all the way out to here. And then it could come to this moment where it all happens and then it can explode. But this was sequenced into failure against the market because of just bad timing, not because it wasn't a good coin to buy for a breakout, because sometimes these breakouts are going to happen. But Bitcoin kind of destroys their move with timing. That's a part of it, right? Timing against any coin is imperative. And then on top of timing against any coin, what else is imperative is understanding Bitcoin's overall health and trying to start reverse engineering what Bitcoin has done and then looking at the rest of the market. Things like TNT, things like Bitcoin Diamond, things that have shown that they are ready to take a move and get sequenced into it properly, right? We haven't seen something backtest one of these higher levels in a long time. This is since, the last time we had something backtest one of these bigger levels off of, kind of this long-term accumulation. It hasn't happened in a long time, right? Like this is a long-term accumulation that is trying to get back up over top of this to attack these upper levels. So every coin will relatively do the same thing given, over the scape of the next month or 2 months or whatever. And this is part of understanding where we're in the market, right? And seeing one or two coins do this as the first one or two coins. And they're always going to have the biggest reactions the first couple coins because it's unassuming. And the victor goes the spoil, right? Like the people who took this trade and took this chance. So it goes to them. And we already know now, after seeing what TNT did, that we're at least at a minimum going to close some weekly valleys here and start at least a laddering against that, which will act as an origin level in the future to probably attack that level properly, right? And do that same thing into this long-term wedge. But, there's a lot of money to be made in that. So we already know that coins are going to do this. It's just about finding the right one that's going to do it next. And that changes every single day. There is no way to say, oh, PPT looks great, QKC looks great, whatever coin, FUN looks great. That's another one that looks great right now is FUNcoin, right? Like what is FUN doing right now? See, it's breaking this kind of long-term trend that it had. And like, is it sequencing into success right now? Like FUN could possibly have a huge breakout here. Like FUN is, trend to trend to trend to trend. Like this is breaking from July. That's a significant trend where most coins are just breaking a three-month trend right now. And this is breaking a 10-month trend, almost 10 and a half months trend here from July 14th. About to break right now. So if Bitcoin allows for it right now, if we have Bitcoin kind of just be a little subtle right now and not be too crazy, you'll see FUN make a pretty crazy move. And then you say, okay, well, what level can it go to, right? The first thing you can do is you can say, well, in a minimum case, we know that it could back attack a weekly inverse. And then you have to drill further into this coin. So we have a weekly inverse here. We can go and say, what is the daily on this now? Okay, so is there any significant valleys? Well, this is pretty significant actually, because there's a daily right here and there's also an inverse there. So I would say with confidence here that this inverse level is a pretty good level to target on FUN. And FUN, what is that, like 35% maybe? 23. Oh, that's, maybe I'm doing the math to this one. 30%. So 23%. That's a relatively good move. And that's if you were to buy the breakout now. If you had gotten in, the other day when proper entry was there, you have 35% here, 33 or 34, whatever that is. And then you have 28 here. This is a part of ascertaining how you can see the market and not just buying random coins and understanding the general health of the market. But it also becomes a test of sequencing again. I keep saying sequencing, but it couldn't be more true. And you'll see it all the time. So this is a good introduction to sequencing and how to look at coins, where they're going, what the market is showing you, and how to start dissecting these moves. And then, when you mix that information with looking at where your fragility of a coin is and what levels you're testing and how big the ceiling is, right? So now you have a couple different things. You have the wait too long on this side, right? You have waiting too long on this side versus greed or risk on this side. Both greed and risk on this side. Versus what are the ceilings on some of these moves and where can the sequencing take you, right? So now you're starting to fill in the other parts, right, of this move. So where you have wait too long, greed, you have F, which is the fragility of a move, right? How fragile it is, right? You have F, and F occurs over and over and over, right? So you have F here, you have a different F grade here, you have a different F rating here, how fragile the move is from here, you have, whatever the trend is, right? Like you have all these different, indications of what fragility means within this little time scale. So now when we look at this, we have defined what it looks like to enter the trade. Either you are waiting too long to get into the trade, therefore increasing your cost of entry. You are greedy to the point of perfect entry. And when you look at greed as a point of perfect entry, being safe, then you have how fragile the move is. And fragility becomes a test of patience, right? Because the safer the level you buy is going to be a lower price. Well, the lower the price is, the longer the move is going to take to mature against this trend. So the lower the price goes, the longer it will take to mature against that trend, right? So you have kind of this, what is the amount of greed involved and what kind of trade do you want to enter? Are you entering a swing, scalp, or position trade, right? So now, or sorry, I should say scalp, swing, or position trade. That would be the correct order. Now, if you've been as greedy as you can, then realize you're not entering a scalp trade because you don't, unless you're exiting right away to re-enter down lower on a hold, which is then you're starting to set up a position trade with scalps in it, right? So then that's something we'll talk about in the future. Now you have, going back to our first lesson, did you wait too long? And where were you greedy, right? Versus the fragility of a move versus understanding the ceiling on a move versus understanding the market health. So MH. So now we're starting to paint a more complete picture about what does this trade look like in this entire spectrum right here, right? Now we are completing more of a complete picture of what does it look like to buy the correct spot and what is it going to look like between greed and waiting too long. And then we'll further define these areas as we go on. This is an area we will further define in the future to show where do you actually get in and out of the move. So when you have this bigger piece of this picture and you've assessed all these angles, where do you actually, where can you say, okay, this is failing down, I need to get out, or I need to hold because this is succeeding up, right?